Lads, do you know what? I think it's time to talk about Chelsea and just everything that's going on at Chelsea. And I just need to talk about it and get it off my chest, to be honest with you, because what's going on at Chelsea Football Club is probably a serious issue right now. And every single one of us Chelsea fans is racking our brains. And after an abysmal showing tonight against Real Madrid, I really just sort of wanted to talk about everything that's been going on. I didn't make a video on Lampard getting the job, and I just wanted to talk about a few things. And I think it's time for us all to admit that actually, since the beginning of this season, since the summer, it is now so obvious for all of us to see that no one has any idea what's going on at Chelsea anymore. From the ownership all the way down, it's chaos. Every single time a decision's made at the top of the club that's questionable, this toxicity runs through the club. It's almost like the club's completely changed, which it has. It's not the Chelsea that we knew and love anymore. It's so far from that. It's so difficult to watch and motivate ourselves to watch this Chelsea team now. But we definitely motivate ourselves better than the managers and the players or playing staff at the moment. That's one thing for sure. But it's really time to sort of start questioning things at Chelsea, I think. Todd Boehly's appointed 3 managers already this season, and not one, or has had 3 managers and sacked 2. Technically has appointed 3 if you class Bruno for a game. But everything's just so chaotic and messy. There's no plan. Before I actually thought, do you know what, it was a bit messy and a bit chaotic and we'd sack managers every 2 years, but at least there was an identity at who was actually going to be good for Chelsea and decent, able to do their job. You know, like, this is a mess from the top to the bottom. And the messier it gets to the top, the worse it's going to be at the bottom. Believe me. And it's time to start questioning that now. And I'm going to start with Lampard. For me, there's no way Frank should have got the job. There's just no way. Frank Lampard failed at Chelsea the first time round, and I know people say he did well with what he had at his disposal, and actually I don't think he did, because I think Thomas Tuchel come in and showed the levels that team could achieve the next season. I know there was a few additions, but believe me, Tuchel and other managers could have done better with that Chelsea team than what Lampard did. It was still a good team. Take nothing away from that. It was still a good team. And arguably in a weaker Premier League than it is now. It was still a good side. It was the last time we even had a goal scorer scoring goals. I don't know how Frank is lucky enough to be in the Chelsea dugout again. I really don't. And I look at the backroom team and it hurts me to see Ashley Cole and other people that have achieved a lot at Chelsea in years gone by get to be back there and just failing. And that's what will happen when you employ Frank Lampard as a manager, because unfortunately Frank's failed everywhere he's been. He failed to take Derby up from the Championship, and he had a very gifted squad with Derby. The highest wage bill, bar Aston Villa at the time, and obviously Aston Villa beat Derby. Frank then got the Chelsea job, arguably too soon and because of his name. Frank got us Champions League, but that was about it. And yeah, he brought through some players, but arguably they were probably going to make it through anyway, and half of them don't even play for Chelsea anymore, so they probably weren't good enough. Although saying that, on tonight's evidence, maybe they could have been. Maybe they actually could have been good enough for Chelsea. Better than what we've brought in under the Clearlake, Boehly, Egbali era so far. But Lampard is not an option. Should never have been considered. I understand that these managers don't want to come in now, which I do think is weird, because there's almost a time where they could come in now and get to know the squad and then start afresh from the beginning of the summer and have a pre-season with players they already know. But apparently Chelsea, the owners don't want to get it wrong again. They're being too cautious. But they're happy to appoint Frank Lampard and write off the season. And if it is true that they've listened to people like James Corden, there's no smoke without fire when it comes to these stories. And do you know what? The sillier the story with this Clear Lake ownership at Chelsea, the more I believe it. I can fully believe Todd Bowley speaking to James Corden and listening to him, because the video before tonight's game where he says we're going to win 3-0, that just sums him up. He has no clue. Chelsea were never going to go to the Bernabeu tonight and win 3-0. That was never going to happen. Ever. And then the performance tonight, wow, if we knew that was coming, then that statement looks even more stupid. Todd Bowley doesn't understand football, and that is where the mess is coming from. The people at the very top have to be responsible for these decisions, and Frank Lampard is another incorrect decision from Chelsea. And I love Frank Lampard, and I know it might seem like I'm getting at him, but as a manager, Frank's just not even close to the level he was as a player. And I'm forever thankful to Frank Lampard for what he provided me as a Chelsea fan and what he provided to all of us as Chelsea fans. I'll never, ever, ever be able to thank him enough for that. But wow, it is testing having to watch Frank manage a football team. And that was the same for Everton fans. It was the same as us before. It was probably almost the same for Derby. It's clueless. It's absolutely clueless. And there's probably somewhere, something telling Frank Lampard that's the right thing for him to be doing right now. And it probably is. But wow, he has to educate himself as a manager. He has to if he wants to achieve anything. Because quite frankly, he is lucky to be where he is now as a Chelsea manager. There is no way that someone getting sacked from Everton, taking Everton down, should ever get the chance to manage Chelsea Football Club. Because Sean Dyche has gone in there and shown complete and utter levels to that situation. He's getting so much more out of Everton than Frank Lampard was with the same team. It's just a joke. I don't think Everton signed anyone in January under Sean Dyche, and he's getting more from the team because Sean Dyche is a better manager. And if Graham Potter couldn't get anything out of Chelsea, then Frank Lampard never was going to be able to. Legend of the club or not, because I'll be honest with you, as bad as it was for Graham Potter at Chelsea, he's a better manager than Frank Lampard. 100% a better manager than Frank Lampard. And what I saw from Bruno in one game, he might even be a better manager than Frank Lampard too. He might just get it. Because I don't think Frank does. And you know what hurts me even more? John Terry is now going to turn up at Leicester and be their assistant coach again under Dean Smith. What is going on at Chelsea Football Club that John Terry, the leader, the captain, the leader, the legend, the vocalist in our unbelievable teams of years gone by, he's not even being given a chance to be on the touchline or whatever. It just absolutely baffles me. You may as well have given the job to John Terry. I just don't understand the Frank Lampard appointment. I understand it from the point of view that they're trying to get the fans back on side, but quite honestly, I think it shows that they have no idea. No idea. Because any fan that is truly honest with themselves understands that Frank isn't capable. But look, if it's going to be shit, then I'd rather it be bad under Lampard than anyone else, to be honest with you. Because at least if there's anything to be happy about, then we can be happy about it with Frank. And don't get me wrong, when Frank Lampard got sacked before, as bad as it was for us, there were times when I would go to the bridge and I would sing his name all game and I would love it. Because he still gave us something. That he gave us the memories and the nostalgia that we had when Frank was pulling on that blue shirt every weekend. And I love Frank for that. And that is why it is so hard to watch him manage Chelsea. Because I know it will never be to the same level or standard as he was able to provide for us as a player. And talking about standards, our standards of a club have fallen so far. It almost feels acceptable now, and I believe this comes from Graham Potter and Todd Bowley, that it is acceptable for things to take time and things to be average And I believe this when I talk about the toxic nature that the club is developing. This is one of those things. The standards are dropping. And John Terry is one of the only people who was around the building that got it, that understands Chelsea's standards. Todd Boehly has removed everything from the club of the previous era. Removed any standards we have. Every single one. And yeah, there were problems with the medical team and the pitch really wasn't as great as it could be. And there are standards that need to be upped. And I get that. I do agree with that. But he's ripped out so much of the club. It must feel like going to a completely different team. You turn up to the same training ground, but it feels completely different. Our standards have dropped so far. It's not acceptable to not turn up at the Bernabeu in your biggest game of the season, but somehow it almost feels okay that, yeah, we'll give it a go next week. That's not acceptable. We should be absolutely livid with what we saw tonight, and there will be fans that are. But it is so far from the club that we knew and loved for the last 20 years. It's so far from that. And our standards are one of the main things that I've noticed that have dropped. So far from the high standards we set before. It's not acceptable to be mediocre at Chelsea Football Club. But unfortunately, under Todd Boehly and Lampard and Potter, it almost feels okay that it was. Now, I don't think Frank will take it as much as Potter. Frank will expect more from his team. I don't have a doubt about that. Albeit he's not a better manager than Potter, because at least Potter had some awareness in some games. Frank doesn't, but he will demand more from Chelsea because he knows what it takes to wear that shirt. The same with Ashley Cole. They know what it takes to wear that Chelsea shirt, and they will meet the standards. And the one positive is with Boehly is that at least he feels that he needs to get these ex-players in, but he removes so much that it wasn't just the players that set these standards. Marina Granovskaya, she set standards. Every time she got a new manager or signed a new player, they had to perform or they were out. It was cutthroat. Now, it's not quite the same. She knew what she had to do. She signed good, high-quality level players. Okay, in the last few years, it's a bit more questionable than it was. Arguably, our scouts were outdated in the information they were using. They were buying expensive players from a poor league. But there was a cutthroatness about Chelsea inside and outside the club. The fans expected results. The owners and the directors expected results. And we got them. And we would turn up to teams and expect results and get them. I feel like no one turned up today thinking they could get something from Real Madrid. And I feel like no one turned up to Wolves and thought they'd get something from Wolves. Because that cutthroat attitude that used to run through Chelsea has gone. We were the best team in England for years. And I was looking and I was setting all this up. And I found the book from the 2016-17 season. That's the last year Chelsea won the Premier League. That feels so long ago, and it is so long ago. And that is so far from the team and the squad that we have now and the club that we have now that I don't know if we'll ever get that back. And that is difficult to accept as a Chelsea fan at the moment. But unfortunately, it's not going to change. And these guys are in it for the long run, apparently. Because Abramovich made them sign for 10 years, I believe, without being able to sell. So they've got to be here for the next decade. A decade in which I don't think will be anywhere near as rewarding as the last few. It won't be even close. And it's going to be difficult. But yeah, there might be some change. And the failings have been coming, like I said, even in the last few years of that Abramovich era. The failings have been here. The squad was aging. We weren't renewing contracts. We were spending money on poor level of players. We're still doing that now. There's no doubt about it. We spent a lot of money on players like Cucurella, who every single time he pulls on a Chelsea shirt is not good enough. He was on the pitch for 2 minutes today, and he made a massive mistake. So those mistakes will still happen. And unfortunately, you could buy 20 players and it's always going to happen. We bought some marvellous players over the years. And we've bought some players that you think would be absolute bankers, and they failed. The likes of Shevchenko, Torres. These players, it just didn't work out for them. They just weren't at the level that they were at their previous clubs. And that will happen. That will happen. But the level of player that we've signed and they've delivered feels like that's dropped off a long way. Every single signing for at least the last 4 years has almost felt questionable. Every single one. Very rarely have we put a player into the team and they've delivered instantly. I could name 2, I think. João Felix, signed. He's looked pretty good since he joined. He looks a slightly higher level than the rest of the team currently playing. Although I think the level of performances from the rest of the team is dragging him down. Enzo, he's come in and is performing to a level above the rest of the team. Tonight, he was our best player on the pitch. But every other player that we've signed feels questionable. Maybe Chilwell is like one of the last ones that's been acceptable, that's been okay. Because Werner, no. Havertz, not really. We can keep going. Koulibaly, Sterling, no. Mudryk, no. Madueke, no. It just feels like there's a lot. And even, like I said, the end of that Abramovich era, there was questionable signings. So this downfall's been coming. 2017 was the last time we won a competition that took consistency. The Champions League, it doesn't take as much consistency as the Premier League. It can be fluked. And I know, do you know what the worst thing about it all is? Is that Tuchel was such a good manager that he papered over the cracks. He made us believe that there wasn't that many problems at Chelsea, but he papered over the cracks by being such a good manager. And that almost harmed us in a way, because he allowed us all to believe that the problems weren't as bad, but they were. And if you look at a chart since 2017, I know there's been an amazing high winning the Champions League again, but honestly, it's been pretty much consistently going down. It really has. We've sold good homegrown talents that are arguably better than what we spent money on. We've not signed players that have been as good as they should have been or as good as we thought they might be. We've signed players that don't fit any type of system. It's messy. And then Todd Bowley's come in and gone, do you know what? It is a mess. And it was a mess. And he's trying to fix it, but he doesn't even know where to start. And I think that's why it's a mess, because he doesn't have a clue. This guy doesn't know anything, but he's doing the right things. He's putting in an elite team of recruitment staff, and he will want the best for the club in every area. And that's the idea that I get, but he is viewing it more as a long-term thing. And the only reason and belief I have in him is that he is making movements to make this happen, and he is putting his money where his mouth is. He doesn't know if a player's good or not. He doesn't. But he has employed some of the best people in the world who do know and have recruited previously very, very well at their previous clubs. And he's employing them at Chelsea and basically saying, look, make this work. My only thought that I have is that there could be a clash of styles. I'm not sure they're all going to work together that well. There is definitely going to be a clash of styles. We've got people coming in from clubs that are notorious for pressing and playing a high moving, fluid, attacking, pressing style. And then there's people coming in from possession base. There's people coming in from selling clubs. It's a bit messy in that sense. It's very scattergun. It's like he's good, but I'm not sure they all fit. And it's going to take a long time for it all to fit together. And that's hard to understand at the moment when we had so much instant success for the last 20 years under Abramovich, and it was like, right, you're coming in now, do the best with this team, and the managers were good enough, and it was cutthroat that if they weren't, they were out, and then the next best manager who was available came in. Ultimately, the idea with Graham Potter that we need to build something and everyone needs to work together was there. It was good, but the results were so bad under Potter. But look, do you know what? That with or without Potter, it's so obvious that the players that are currently turning up for Chelsea Football Club at the moment aren't good enough. They aren't good enough. Whether we like it or not, then they are not good enough. Whether they cost 100 million or not, they're not good enough. And unfortunately, I think that means that Bowley is going to have to spend more money, because we've spent money on these players who aren't good enough. Raheem Sterling was good, but unfortunately I fear for Raheem Sterling, another player that is caught in the too much too young category, that they play so many games of football at such a young age that they just burn out and their bodies almost peak way earlier than other people's, and then by the time they get to sort of 28, they're fading. And that's what's happened with like Wayne Rooney in the past as a prime example. By the time Wayne Rooney was 28, he was half the player he was at 22, because he played so much football as a young age. And the same with Sterling. So much football as a young age. That's why Raheem Sterling and Wayne Rooney are England's two highest goal-scoring players in the Champions League, because they have been so good, but they fell down so far. And then you get players with unbelievable longevity like Luka Modric and Toni Kroos out on the field tonight, and Benzema, who also came through at young ages but have just managed to take themselves to another level and just keep replicating and reproducing to these new levels and higher levels almost every season as they get older and go past what we knew as players' peaks, and allow that duration to last even longer. Oh, how I wish we'd signed Luka Modric all those years ago when we were linked with him. But look, Chelsea's a mess at the moment, and I really do worry that there's a lack of idea. But there are hints that hopefully it can all come together, but it does feel very messy, and that's the word I use, because it is messy. And this could take way longer than we all thought, to be honest with you, because today I don't think that's the bottom against Real Madrid, because at least it's a Champions League night. We're not going to be in it next season, realistically. And wow, I'm not sure when we next will. We won't be... Look, if we're not in it this season, if we're not in it next season, because we don't qualify this season, I don't think we'll be in it for at least the next 2 years. Our team will not be good enough next year to crack into the top four. Even without European football, I don't think it will be. It's going to take a lot of fixing. It's going to have to take a high-quality manager to work with everything that we've got. And ultimately, we're going to have to give it time to gel, because if the guys who have been employed to recruit for Chelsea are going to have to put together a squad that is capable of winning, and a manager that can gel that squad together and get something, which obviously they all thought Graham Potter was, but he wasn't. He just wasn't. And it concerns me massively that this could just be the start of a lot worse. At least we're enjoying a European night. It could get way worse for Chelsea, and I don't know or have any idea of how that looks right now and what Chelsea's future looks like. I really, really don't. But there are serious problems at Chelsea Football Club right now, and they need to be addressed. They need to be looked at. The owners need to look at themselves. They need to look at the decisions they're making, because no one's telling them what to do. They are responsible at the end of the day. They are responsible. And if they are asking people that have no knowledge in terms of football, and they're asking people for ideas and help and opinions when they can't back it up with any football knowledge or experience or just anything, then that is so, it just makes us a laughing stock. And I really hope that isn't the case. I'm sure they wouldn't be that stupid, but there is no smoke without fire, like I said. And maybe Todd Bowley is asking the wrong people their opinions on what should be happening at Chelsea Football Club right now. And it pains me to say it, but wow, it's bad. It's really, really bad at Chelsea, and this doesn't feel like the Chelsea I've known and loved for so many years, and I'm not sure that it ever will again, but I'm willing to get behind the new era and just sort of see where it goes, to be honest, because I think we're going to have to be really patient with it. And I tried to be patient with Graham Potter, but It was so bad under him. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no patience for Frank Lampard as a manager, because I've given him chances at Chelsea before as a manager, and I gave him chances to see how he developed at Everton, and nothing's changed. And to be quite honest with you, the performance I saw tonight felt like I watched Everton play Real Madrid in the Champions League. It was awful. It was awful. There's no differences between Frank Lampard's Everton side and this Chelsea side. They set up almost identical. It's horrific. It's hard to watch, and Frank Lampard shouldn't be in that job. I made a video about who I think should be Chelsea's new manager. I stick by that. Those are the options for me. Frank Lampard wasn't on that list for a reason. Other managers aren't on that list for a reason. People said to me about Pochettino, or someone even asked me about Brendan Rodgers. These managers aren't of Chelsea's level. Like, they're not of Chelsea's level. They're my choices. They're my top choices. I think employing some of them would all have benefits that I put on that list. Every single one of them would be more beneficial to Chelsea than harmful, to be honest. This team lacks so much fight and desire and hunger that has to be addressed as well. I don't know where you start with that, but I'm pretty sure that by bringing in a manager that wants to win things, that starts to rub onto the players. But Abramovich was hungry and wanted to be successful, and that run down on the whole club. It meant that people who weren't even playing or coaching staff wanted to win things, wanted to excel at their jobs. And unfortunately, I don't know where that comes from, because I don't look at Todd Bowley as that guy. I think he's a successful businessman, but I'm not sure he wants to excel as much as Roman did. Hopefully I'm wrong. And that changes. But it's tough for us Chelsea fans at the moment. That's where I stand with Chelsea. I know it's a bit of a long video, but I really feel like I've got to make that. It kind of combines my overall thoughts with Chelsea at the moment into just one video, and it'll be interesting to look back at this and just sort of see how disillusioned we all are with Chelsea at the moment, and how discontented we are. I don't even know if that's a word, but how far disconnected we feel from Chelsea compared to how we used to. And hopefully that this roller coaster starts to even out at some point, and then we start to see more of an upwards curve and a positive trajectory, because it feels like that is so far away from Chelsea right now. And the first big step will be a clear out in the summer of players that aren't good enough, and appointing a manager who comes with a winning pedigree, which I think is more important now than ever, because our players and managers and playing staff and coaching staff and academy do not have that at the moment. And I think that is so important as a starting base for Chelsea Football Club right now. So, look, long video. Let me know what you think. I'm well up for the Chelsea discussion at the moment about talking about the club and what we think's being done wrong and right. And I can make more videos if we need to on this situation. But I thought I'd get everything out there and just kind of address a few things that are going on at Chelsea at the moment. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new to the channel and you've made it all the way to the end of this video, then thank you, because it's a long one. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I'm definitely going to start talking about not just Chelsea and get some other football stuff flowing on the channel as well, but I thought Chelsea was a good place to start for uploading more videos. So let me know what you think. I'll see you on the next one.